How about that cigar?
How about that cigar?
Well, it's a beautiful Tuesday night. The temperature finally dropped below 8 trillion Kelvin or whatever the hell it's been lately. Oh, you got to turn your volume down, bro, because you're killing my mojo with your delay.
Who did that?
I don't know, this guy. So yeah, it's a nice night out. We're in the new digs in the garage and loving life. Not too hot, not too cold. Garrett, how's it going?
Oh man, it is a beautiful night.
So
That's what it is.
welcome to episode 19. It is July 30th, 2019 for episode 19 of How About That Cigar. And we have some very special guests coming up in just a couple minutes here. We're going to talk about some of the goofy stuff we talk about a little bit at the beginning of every show. The Minnesota Twins, blah, blah, blah. They were 12 games up. Now they're 2 games up.
And that's a mix of things. Yeah. One, it is Twins not being as stellar as they were the first half of the season. But I think more than that is how hot Cleveland has been.
Yeah.
So, the Twins still have a fantastic record in baseball. Still ranked number 4, but Cleveland is closing that gap with a great record of their own.
Yeah, only thing in our favor is we keep winning division games and they tend to lose division games. So I guess that's helping us, but they've got work to do. They're playing right now against Miami, I think.
Yep.
They were up last time I checked.
They're up
about an hour ago. So guys, thanks for watching and listening to episode 19 of How About That Cigar. If you would, please like, share, and subscribe. Let people know what we're doing. We appreciate it very much. And this evening we are starting with we started earlier with a little treat, but now we're going with the Whiskey Rebellion, the special release from Roma Craft and Cigar Dojo, the Lonsdale size that came out 2 weeks ago or 10 days ago, somewhere in that neighborhood. They sold out pretty quickly, so I hope you got your hands on some because it is a really nice Vitola for this cigar. And we're gonna fire these up right now.
I just can't even tell you how excited I am for this show.
Yeah, me too. So we're gonna bring them in now because I just can't wait anymore. So I was fortunate enough back in the day when I was with Blind Man's Puff. I was fortunate enough to have a chance to meet the filmmakers behind Hand Rolled, a film about cigars, and these guys put together a documentary that I think has really changed the game as far as teaching people about the world of premium cigars and giving a history lesson and a government expose and sort of a family portrait of the cigar industry. So without further ado, I would like to welcome the directors behind that film, Jesse and Steve. Guys, how are you doing this evening?
Doing well, man. How are you guys?
Doing great.
We're doing great. We really appreciate you guys being on the show with us. I'm going to have Garrett say hi so I can get this thing going.
Absolutely. Get it rocking. I can't, you guys, I'm stoked to have you guys on the show. Excited to get into some of the nitty gritty and the questions we have. And I know a lot of other people have about the movie. As you mentioned, you get several comments daily when this thing is coming out, and we'll be able to answer all those questions here shortly. So, again, thanks so much for being here. Matt, did you want to kick it off with a few questions, or?
Yeah, I want to dive right in. Just as far as, the movie that you guys decided to make, I was fortunate. I got to see it, the premiere at IPCPR in 2018. And, right off the get-go, I love the movie. And so normally we would kind of, dive into sort of the Spider-Man origin story about how you guys got into cigars. But I want to give everybody the sort of the meat of the movie and the story behind the movie itself. I know you guys have been cigar lovers and collectors for a while, and you've been in the commercial filmmaking business for a while. And then all of a sudden, here comes this idea for a documentary about premium cigars. And what can you think back to that singular moment when you said to yourselves, okay, we're actually going to do this? What was that one moment where you said, we're actually going to make this documentary about cigars?
Well, it's a couple of moments really, but it culminated into this conversation that Jesse and I had. I think it was at the end of 2015, 16, 2016, something like that. Yeah. And, you know,
Oh no, 50.
yeah, I think it was at the end of 2015. You know, a lot of filmmakers get into the industry thinking, you know, they're going to tell stories and make movies and get bogged down somewhere along the way, just, you know, commercial work or whatever it is that's paying. And so that's sort of where we were at the time. And we realized, you know, we've been doing this for a while. We never actually got a chance to really tell our own stories. So we had this conversation. We asked ourselves, like, what story could we tell that if it came down to it and we weren't being paid and we weren't, you know, we didn't have a budget, like what could we take all the way to fruition from A to Z and tell a whole story, regardless of how long it takes and, you know, and whether or not it pays. And so we decided we could do that about cigars. So, you know, we started doing some research and figuring that out. And that was kind of the moment where we realized, hey, nothing out there on any major platform exists on this topic. And it's something that we really love and enjoy. So why not?
Yeah, no, that's great. So talk about, you know, sort of your early days in, you know, when you started getting into cigars and realizing this was a really cool hobby to be a part of, cool community to be a part of. Walk us through that for each of you, that first cigar that just really piqued your interest.
Do you remember yours?
Yeah, I remember mine.
For me, I remember very clearly. I was in college with a buddy of mine. We got a Romeo y Julieta from a local cigar shop, and I thought it was weird that they had a lot of birds in there. Those birds, I'm certain, are dead now. But yeah, no, we grabbed a cigar and we brought it home. Forgot to get a cutter, so we stabbed it with a pen. And he and I shared a cigar, which I hate admitting publicly, but I'll say it anyway. It got about halfway through. We're both like, all right, we've had about enough. And that was it. But yeah, I mean, I can't forget the cigar, and I can't remember. I mean, I can't forget the experience because it was cool. It was a fun experience. I didn't get sick or anything. We just kind of got over it and then started smoking some more after that and got to the point where we started collecting and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a few months later, Jesse finished his college career a little early and came home and he introduced me to, I think, a Gurkha poolside at his apartment complex back in the day. And I remember I smoked probably a third of it and immediately started vomiting everywhere. It was my first time, and it was a hell of an experience.
Oh yeah. Well, it's not uncommon. A lot of people, I mean, from every walk of life, a lot of people, their first experience with a premium hand rolled cigar turns them.
Thanks for making me feel better. I appreciate that.
Hey, it's true. It's absolutely true. For me, it was my dad back when I was a kid, when it was time for cutting firewood. It was, you know, he had the Dutch Masters and he had the Grenadiers and that kind of thing. But then
Grenadiers.
I was fortunate to graduate to definitely nicer offerings after that.
That's funny.
So we know that you guys, obviously you got all the necessary funding throughout the process, which is one of the toughest things when it comes to making a project like this, is getting the backing necessary to be able to get all the shots that you need and do all the interviews and travel all the places that you have to. Tell us about, give us one example of a great triumph that you had when it came to getting backing or getting to the right spot at the right time, or getting the, you know, just the right shot. And, you know, some of those stories, give us one or two of those, you know, examples of when things just fell apart a little bit and how you worked your way out of that.
Well, raising the money part was something that was strange to us because we never had to raise money for a project, and certainly not to that amount of money. So that was difficult pitching it to companies that are so used to print advertising and explaining to some of these guys what Netflix is and what social media is and streaming platforms are. So that was, I mean, we were raising money even after we did the premiere in Vegas because we had bills to pay. Music is not cheap, editing is not cheap, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that every little time we got a check, albeit if it was 2,000 or bigger amounts, we celebrated every time. So we just didn't know what we were doing. Now we know a little bit better how to ask people for that kind of stuff. But I think the biggest triumph for us and the most unexpected and can't believe we got that shot is Jose Orlando Padron.
Yeah.
I mean, it was not even on our radar. We interviewed Jorge the night before, and that was it. We had no expectation to interview Jose, and we didn't even ask if we could interview him. So we did the interview the next day with Berta Bravo, which she's in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as we finished the movie, we're just sitting there cleaning up the gear, and George calls us and says, "Hey, my dad wants to do an interview with you guys." And then, as we know, that was his last on-camera interview. He went to the hospital a week later, passed a few months later, unfortunately. But that for us was like, man, like you see him in the movie so much because he's got so much to say, and it's great stuff. But we can't believe we got that shot. It's still insane that we got that interview.
Yeah, and it was a big honor for us to be able to. I don't know if you remember at the premiere, we were able to actually do a little bit of a tribute to him.
Yeah,
there at the end, and it was a special experience for us.
Yeah.
And we got to screen the movie for his family the night after the premiere, or the day after. We got to screen it for their family at their hotel. So that was really special too.
Well, and it was nice too because earlier in the year we were together there at the Nicaraguan Cigar Festival.
Yeah.
And some of the footage that you guys had was shown at the tribute that one evening when they had a tribute for Senor Oliva and a tribute for Mr. Padron, and it was just a great moment to see.
That wasn't actually our interview.
Yeah, I don't think that was any.
I feel like a jerk now, but it was still a really cool moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was super touching.
What was that sort of environment like? Because it was cool having him and his son, in the room at the same time. This storied cigar company, and sort of seeing his son sort of translate a little bit, and just that vibe between them. They have unfortunately had such a cool father-son vibe. What was that like? Just that energy in the room with those guys.
Well, it was just a surreal experience. First of all, like the night before when we had just done George's interview, George turned off his phone and turned off all the phones in the office because they just kept ringing, and it was just not good for the filming process. And his wife was trying to get a hold of him, and then his dad was trying to get a hold of him, and George told us that his dad thought we were terrorists because he thought he saw a few white boys walking around the office, and he didn't know who they were, and he was just kind of like suspicious.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting the next day to have a laugh about that, but also like as he's recounting his stories of like their factory literally being bombed and like motioning to the building that was bombed and stuff. I mean, it was just it was a different. I mean, it was an experience like no other. I think for us to just be feel like we were a little part of that history and watching him tell this story, which I don't know that he's ever told on camera. So
yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I can't even compare it to anything in another realm of the world. Whether it's if it's a feature, a young up and coming feature filmmaker interviewing Martin Scorsese or something. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible honor just to be in the same room. And I mean, you just sit and listen to him talk, and you just jaw on the floor like, oh my God, this is happening. We're actually in the room, getting this guy to tell his story, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and
remember, we also have about an hour and a half of interview with him, and I think like 18 minutes of his interview made the movie,
something like that,
something small like that. So we've got a lot of footage of him.
That's awesome. I the first time that he came on screen, I literally got goosebumps. Just because of what he is as an icon in this industry. So I can't imagine what it was like for you guys to be filming that
Yeah,
Awesome.
it was crazy. Like, I mean, in the moment, you're rushing to get there, rushing to set up. He can't sit in certain chairs because his legs are hurting him and stuff like that. So it's like, go, 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 go. Okay, interview now. Then afterwards, you sit back and you're like, man, I can't believe that just happened. That was crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, we're interviewing in rolly chairs? Okay.
Yeah.
This is gonna be interesting for audio purposes, but
Yeah.
it's you can get, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. So you guys know, as not only as filmmakers, but also as cigar collectors, you know, and we're cigar collectors too. And everybody who collects cigars sort of has that white whale cigar. Like, oh, I someday I want to smoke this cigar, or I want to get a box of these to put in my collection. And at the same time, and we know we already talked about Mr. Padron, but what I also want to find out if besides that, if there were any of those white whale interviews that you had in your mind from the very beginning that you're like, we have to interview this person. It's so important that we interview this person for this film, and who that person was and what it was like when you finally got that, okay, we're going to be able to get that interview.
Marvin Shankin was the one.
Okay.
You can't tell the story of the boom without Marvin, right? And you can't really put into perspective what the boom did for the industry without getting him in the movie. And he turned us down 3 times over 2 years. And when we actually sat down to do the interview with him, he didn't even say hi to us. That's the first thing he said is, I turned you guys down 3 times and here you are. He's like, you guys are the biggest pain in my ass. He gave us time. He gave us an interview, and
We did soften the blow with a tin of pre-embargo Romeo y Julietas, though. So
yeah,
you know,
our friends over at Puro Trader hooked us up with that.
Nice.
To give him a nice gift, and so he was. I mean, he ended up being great, but and we're very thankful that we have him, because now he's such a big part of the story, and you can put a face to the. And the other thing is, he even told us he's only done 5 on-camera interviews, this being his 5th.
Yeah.
So he just doesn't do interviews for Wine Spectator, for anything.
I mean, he'll conduct the interviews, but he won't be interviewed.
Yeah.
He'd rather be on the other side of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And writing the story. So do you remember how much? I mean, there's definitely some great footage of him in the finished film. How much footage would you say you got with him?
With Marvin?
Yeah.
Not a whole lot.
Probably 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So he kept it tight on the timeline and was like, get these kids out of my office, kind of thing.
More or less. I mean,
Yeah.
I think he gave us a little more than he originally planned to. So that was nice. But yeah, I mean, we wanted to respect his time as well. You know, it was our first time over at their offices,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
I think we got everything we needed with him.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Oh yeah, the stuff that was in there was perfect, because Cigar Aficionado did play such just a huge role in turning the cigar industry into what it was in the mid late 90s.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to get him to talk a little more shit, but he was a lot more careful when the red light was flashing on the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, he's got a lot of relationships he's got to maintain.
Yeah.
You understand that.
We have 0 relationships we need to maintain. In fact, we have some bridges we've been meaning to burn. You guys want to talk about those guys now?
Yeah, let's do it. Where's that bourbon?
I'll turn this over to the white.
Yeah, let's get the bourbon going. We'll just let it all out.
I'll do it sober.
And I have to say that when I saw the film premiere at IPCPR last year, I was so excited about when I heard the voice of the narrator, because you know, as a kid growing up in the 70s and 80s, for me, you know, this guy had an iconic voice, and then seeing him later on in shows like Sons of Anarchy, and I mean, tell us about the process, about how you went about getting Peter Weller to do the narration for this film.
Dead or alive, you're coming with me.
Peter was awesome. I mean, we met him with Pete at the Grand Havana one night in Beverly Hills, and they were just shooting the shit. And Pete asked him, I think just right there on the spot, like, "Hey, would you?" Or maybe he did it over text or something the next day or something. But basically, just asked him point blank, like, "Hey, would you narrate this film? We're doing a film about cigars." would you narrate it for us? And Peter agreed. And so we showed up. We actually did 2 recordings with him for our initial trailer. Right? We did it separately, didn't we? Yeah. Separately. Yeah. So we went down to LA twice just to record with him. So for our trailer, the first trailer that we did in 2017, he gave us about 4 minutes. He literally just walked into the spare room at the Grand Havana, and it was right before he was going up to do a jazz set. It was like Wednesday nights. He does like a jazz set with his friends or something.
Yeah.
For like 3 or 4 hours. I mean, it's hilarious. He's a great performer and like really good jazz musician too. So that was cool to watch afterwards. But he came in for like 4 minutes, literally between them going up and doing some practice, and he was actually late because he was on set for Sons of Anarchy. So we ended up waiting for him like 2 hours, I think, just hanging around. Then he walks in, gives us 4 minutes, and literally just reads through the line once, and then just stands up and leaves. And it was perfect. I mean,
he nailed it.
He nailed it. But that was only like 4 lines. And then the second time around, when we had the narration script finally finished for the whole movie, I think he sat with us for about an hour and something, and it was great. Like, he would read through it. He's like, "What the fuck is this shit?" And then just be like, "I'm changing this. I'm changing this." And he would just like, he would change it. Then he was like, "I had some statistics in there." He's like, "Is this shit true? I better not be saying this if it's not true." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, it's true. Relax." He's great. So he's a funny character, man.
Yeah, well, I love him now even more knowing that he's a jazz musician.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So he was changing your lines on you a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like he was correcting my grammar, which, oops.
Yeah, well.
I mean, he's a professional. So
yeah.
He's done this a few times.
He's a professor at UCLA, right?
No, I had no idea.
Yeah, he's like teaches history at UCLA.
Oh,
Italian history, no?
Yeah, I think Italian history. Yeah, so
you got to stop giving me reasons.
Yeah, he was grading my shit on the spot. He had his red pen and everything.
That's awesome. Well, and I've been loving him recently watching Longmire. I don't know if you guys have seen Longmire, but he is outstanding in that. And we have a new guest joining.
We got an intruder showing up here just out of the blue just because he feels like it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Pete Johnson from Tatuaje Cigars. Pete, how's it going? We're doing great. Thanks for crashing our party. We appreciate having you on the show. That's all right. That's all right. We're just talking to Jesse and Steve about having Peter Weller do the narration, and they keep telling me things about him, that he's a jazz musician and a history professor, and I keep falling in love with the guy even more.
Hey, could you get in a darker room, Pete?
You still there?
Yeah, sweet.
All right. So Pete, give us a little bit of background about how you met Jesse and Steve and got involved with this project.
Oh boy.
Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
And how did it turn from just meeting you and talking to you about what they wanted to do with the film, and how did it go from that, just a casual meeting, to you saying, "Okay, I'm in. Let's do this"? Are you jonesing? Got to get.
Make it till you make it, baby.
Yeah, the overall feel of the film is one of the things that I appreciate the most. And I'm a documentary nerd in the first place. It honestly doesn't matter what the subject is. I'm a history buff, and I love learning about the way that things happened. And you know,
Yeah, perfect.
Nailed it.
nailed it. Yeah,
Nailed it.
and just the way you guys, and because I've seen some of the films that were made in the '90s, about the cigar industry, and some of the films back then were actually made by companies sort of as promotional materials, things like that, and they were okay, but this film really hit all the three major areas, which is it hit the history, it hit the governmental impact, and it hit the family piece of the cigar culture.
Mhm.
And I think those were the three most important pieces to hit, and this landed on all three, definitely.
Yeah, I loved the origin and how you guys really doubled down on the Cuba history. Can you walk us through a little bit about what that process looked like for you guys when you were building out this documentary, and where do you even start with a documentary like that?
Yeah, I mean, that was rough because we didn't know exactly until we did a lot of the interviews which direction everything was going, and we just we didn't we felt initially that just going the Cuba route could be very cheesy, like almost PBS ish type documentary, but inevitably in telling the stories, you realize that once you start interviewing family after family, like a lot of the origin stories just simply go back there. I mean, obviously that seems very obvious, but being that all these manufacturers and stuff are in Nicaragua, are in the Dominican, whatever, we wanted to really kind of tell those stories as well. But then going and reading through why a lot of these families are there, and doing the prep before each interview that we shot. We did hours and hours of prep work. You kind of just realize that you can't really tell the story without it. And then, Pete had a good kind of point there in the interview that we shot with him early on, that there's a lot of hype behind that, and just there's a dishonesty in the industry about how great they are, and the hype that's built around them. And we just felt like we just ask people these questions and basically just throw up what everybody said.
Okay.
Awesome.
I want to throw this in. I'm getting messages from a couple viewers saying
Yep.
That we can't hear Pete. Now I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
And
Fine.
I know Steve and Jesse can hear you, but it looks like the viewers can't hear you. So. And no light.
Oh, no light.
Well, nothing else. We can fix it in post.
Yeah, we'll get the audio back.
Yeah. We'll work on that.
Guys, give us a shout if you can hear Pete now.
So, Pete, a question for you in your involvement in this. What does it mean to you personally to be involved in a project like this?
Yeah, I agree, 100%. and the history behind it, whether it was the time you guys spent in Cuba, the time you guys spent in Nicaragua, Dominican, the roots always go back to Cuba, and I love how you definitely spent a lot of time talking about that, about how all the turmoil and the revolution pulled people out of Cuba by necessity to find themselves in Miami, Nicaragua, Dominican, Honduras, wherever it was. What was the most surprising story that you guys heard from one of these patriarchs of the cigar community, as far as their story of how they had to escape Cuba?
That's a good question.
I mean,
there's a few guys that wouldn't even talk about Cuba. They said don't even mention Cuba in the interview.
Wow.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
between me one.
I
Yeah.
wasn't going to say a name, but but no, that means still. It's
So-
just people still have ties in Cuba, and they just couldn't talk. They don't even mention Cuba at all. But I don't remember if anybody told us anything crazy about
Well,
that.
I mean, there was. I think the Padron story with Cuba was probably the one that kind of tied everything together more.
Yeah.
I mean, just him having met Castro and being able to shed light both on the history, both on the political side of that issue. I think he kind of just weaved the whole story together. But then, too, you had the Placencias and Oliva and and Manolo, who also, I mean, like this is basically why we started the movie on this route, because it made sense to frame it within that context, because everybody had some drawback to that story.
Yeah.
And we didn't know to what degree until we took it in the editing room and literally transcribed like all of these interviews. We didn't know to what degree these stories were interconnected, and it was just actually really interesting on the editing room floor to see it all come together that way.
Yeah. What was the biggest hurdle for you, if there were any, when you guys were on the ground in Cuba? Because obviously it's a different sort of dynamic there as far as dealing with customs, dealing with the government there, and you guys had a bunch of equipment you had to bring with you and things like that. So talk a little bit about how the turmoil that you guys had to go through just filming in Cuba alone.
Well, yeah. That's exactly right. I mean, we did like a 3-week travel.
It was more than that. I think it was like, yeah, you're right.
About 3
About
weeks.
3 weeks.
So
About 3
we
weeks,
started with the Dominican and the festival out there, then to Miami, to DC, then to Cuba. So we're traveling with 14 bags of gear everywhere we go. And to get into Cuba, we went under visitor visas through Mexico. So the cheapest way for us to do that, to leave our gear there, was to get a hotel room, put the do not disturb sign on it, and start praying, hope that 100 grand gear doesn't get stolen. And we took small cameras with each of us had a one backpack with a camera in each of it, a small tripod, and only one light versus the 5 lights we were using everywhere else.
Yeah.
One battery powered light. So, and we got in, customs was kind of crazy. Took forever to get our bags, but otherwise got in, got the interviews, and then got out safely. I mean, everything on ground was great. We just were handicapped by the limitation of not having all of our gear, everything that we were used to having.
And how long were you in country in Cuba?
5 days.
5 days. And did you ever have, during that time, I mean, aside from, just shuffling your way through customs in and out, were there any times that you got stopped or questioned or anything like that?
I think we got stopped in the car one time, if I'm not mistaken, but it was just, I think they just checked our IDs and then we went on. It wasn't bad. But then again, like, our liaison there was really good. And he told us, like, look, guys, don't don't bring a bunch of shit with you. If you have a bunch of gear, you're going to turn heads, and they're going to start asking way too many questions, and you guys don't want to get in trouble, and the Rabinas are nice enough to host you guys and to give you these interviews. Don't get them in trouble, So
Yeah.
it was like it was a bit of, we were forewarned basically. So yeah, we, like Jesse said, we just locked our shit up in a hotel room in Cancun, put that do not disturb sign, and each of us had a backpack, Jesse, Serge, and myself, and we just looked like three tourists.
Yeah.
I mean, the cameras that we had were just like, I mean, no bigger than this iPhone, so just small little consumer grade cameras, and again, nothing special. And they were all of our gear was distributed in all three of the backpacks that we had. With, I don't even think we had enough clothes like for the 5 days. We just did laundry while we were there, and like we really wanted to keep it low key and respect the fact that the Rabinas were taking some risk to host us and to agree to these interviews. So
yeah. What about how much time did you guys spend in DC talking to lawmakers and things like that?
That was a short trip. I think we were there 3 days.
Yeah, I think 3 days total. I think not even 3 full days.
Yeah, Glenn Loop and the guys over at the CRA were great in getting those interviews ready for us. So, I mean, they literally just took us from spot to spot. We shot the interview and moved on. We had no time. So
yeah,
it was back to back. Glenn was awesome and just lined those up for us. And
did you guys have any surprises from some of the people? And you don't have to mention names, but any surprises that you talked as far as the people that you dealt with in DC? Some of the lawmakers, maybe some of the big names, people who maybe shared some things with you that you were a little surprised by.
It's in the movie. I mean, I'm blanking on his name. We had the stack of laws.
Jim something or other.
Something, yeah.
I keep thinking of Jim Hopper, but that's Stranger Things.
I mean,
No spoilers.
That was the most surprising thing, I think. Everything else was pretty. They're politicians, right? So they had great stuff for the movie, but the fact that the one gentleman was storing all the new laws that were being passed without people knowing about them, that was crazy to see how big those stacks were.
Yeah, the regulations that were basically handed out every morning. That was just a great visual, like you read about that and you hear about it, but just to actually see it stacked there, I think really just drove the point home of the fact that Congress isn't just making these laws. It's literally the FDA, for example, in this industry that is literally writing these laws, and they are unelected officials, dictating how we live our lives. And I hope that was that, we drove that point home, that's a really problematic thing to be, to have that dictated to you by people that are not accountable to voters at all in any way.
And remind me of the number. Is it out of all smokable tobacco products in the United States, isn't premium cigars 0.09% or something like that?
It's something tiny.
0.02 is what I remember. That's the number that's stuck in my head.
Yeah, and they're trying to lump it all together. The word tobacco, they put it all together in this neat little package, and they just throw it out there and expect everybody just to fall in line, basically.
Yeah.
What is your hope for this movie being used as a political tool?
I mean, the lawmakers and the people at the CRA, they're fighting the legal battle, and I think that's really important. Our battle is more, the hearts and minds. We're just hoping that people watch the film and just literally never associate cigars with cigarettes again. I mean, they're such different things. Just because one of the root ingredients happens to be the same, and it's really not even the same. It's not the same tobacco either, but it's the same word. We really hope that people watch this and think, this is not at all the same thing.
Right.
It doesn't have the addictive qualities. It doesn't have the health problems to the degree that cigarettes do. In fact, the health problems are largely unknown. And so we just really hope that on every level, people just disassociate cigarettes and cigars.
Yeah. One of my favorite things along that line in the movie is where Carlito says, you've got a chimpanzee and a dolphin. They're both mammals, but to even attempt to equate them as the same thing, it's just a great analogy that the layperson who doesn't know the first thing about premium cigars, who doesn't use any type of tobacco products, and we all have those people in our lives who,
Of course,
you say cigars, and they sort of wince and they go, "Oh, you use tobacco products," and to try to explain to them, in a few seconds how, yes, I smoke premium cigars, but it's completely different. I'm not a bad person kind of thing. It's to get that point across to the layperson and certain family members. It's tough sometimes.
And let's talk about for a second all the platforms that you're currently going to be releasing this film on, and maybe some release dates.
They are. It's live on iTunes now.
Yep.
It was supposed to come out about August 15th on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon. iTunes released about 3 weeks early, so you can get it there now. And we will be announcing as soon as Amazon and Google Play release it, but it should be no later than mid-August.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The second it goes live, we'll post about it and make sure people know.
I got an email from Amazon yesterday that said 2 to 3 business days. So
be soon.
We could get lucky on that front and get it early there too.
Yeah.
And awesome. Just to remind viewers and listeners that we will be giving away a copy of the film if you have not seen it. Or if you've seen it.
Actually, I don't think it's a reminder. We haven't even divulged that yet.
We haven't.
So that's we're how about that cigar? We're going to give away a copy. So anybody who leaves a comment on the video, we're gonna choose one at random and gift a copy of Hand Rolled to one lucky viewer.
That's awesome.
So I want to talk just briefly about, because you guys you're not one-dimensional. Nobody's one-dimensional. You're into stuff other than cigars. And just on the other side of things, your filmmaking side, I know you guys are probably still working in the commercial filmmaking industry, but are there any other passions or hobbies besides, you made this great documentary about premium cigars? Are there any other passions or hobbies that you can think of that you would ever put the time and the effort and the passion into turning into a feature-length documentary like you did with Hand Rolled?
Well, I'm really into CrossFit, as you can tell.
I was gonna say it would be CrossFit or hot yoga or something like that.
I don't know. I don't know that I have any hobbies that I put this much effort into. 4 years of our lives into filming.
Yeah.
I mean, I fly fish. We both fly fish, but I wouldn't make a movie about it. That of, bro. That we invite you to.
Brad Pitt already did that one.
Side note, Pete, we have a better lit version of you right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that old school right there.
Turn on the light. Pete's usually asleep by sundown, so it doesn't matter.
Sundown already? Oh, come on. It's early. It's early. Tell us about some of the so out of all the interviews you had, I mean, you guys had, major
Pete's was
players.
the best.
Pete's was definitely the best. Pete's was definitely the best. But of all the, I mean, you had serious heavy hitters in the cigar industry, but you also had, people from online media. You had some people from Instagram and some cigar media people and things like that. What was out of all the people that you interviewed, what was the person that during the interview and afterwards you were saying to yourself, man, I was not expecting this at all. This person was either, just one of the most down to earth, I could consider this person being maybe a friend for life, or what was one of the biggest surprises of all the interviews that you guys conducted?
Well, I would say, I mean, I made a joke earlier, but literally, I mean, Pete has become a friend for life as far as I'm concerned. But aside from the obvious, we were in the Dominican, and I mean, that was just a crazy trip. We shot a bunch of interviews over the course of like a week. I think we probably got 5 cumulative hours of sleep. And, we were late to film with Hochi Blanco one day. And I think he was like, he had a cold or a hangover, whichever. And he was like kind of pissed when we got there because we were like an hour late.
Gomez?
No, Hochi. Remember we got there like like an hour late because I don't know.
Yep.
Different time zones or something. I don't know whatever it was. But yeah, he was kind of pissed, and then it all kind of turned around. Like once we were in the interview, he was all lit up, and everything. I mean, he ended up giving us an additional like 20, 30 minutes longer than he anticipated because we were late, and it went really well. And then he also like just didn't give a shit. Like any question that we asked, like he would not tiptoe around anything. Like we had to just like for the sake of like other people in the industry, like not just like not divulge even like the most like the harshest things that he had to say about. I'm not talking about within the industry. I'm talking about like outside of the industry, like the big tobacco companies and stuff. Stuff that he had said. And he was just like, I don't give a shit. I'll just say whatever. But I think that was a surprising interview. It went a lot better than I had anticipated, especially when we showed up and he was a little pissed.
Yeah.
No, Lito we got kind of last minute, and he only wanted to give us 20 minutes, but he ended up giving us like 45. With Hochi, we were actually late, and it was actually our fault. We were like across town somewhere and stuck in traffic, and we had miscommunicated.
We're just here for the free samples. Yeah.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I love the whole film, but just getting to listen to Jorge Padron speak about his history and his interaction with Castro and how he got away from Cuba and started his venture. It was just it was incredible.
And probably one of my favorite lines in the movie is you like to handle the tobacco like a woman.
Yeah. Caress it a lot.
Yeah,
Caress it.
you caress it.
And what happens when you caress it? It gets
better. Yeah.
Love that. Where did you? There's a lot of really great aerial and drone footage. Where did you guys get most of your good quality drone footage from?
Well, we shot drone footage everywhere except for Cuba.
Okay.
Yeah. We were told don't bring a drone into Cuba because the penalty is worse than trying to sneak drugs into the country.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we were able to find someone that got a drone into Cuba. We were able to license footage for him for that. But I mean, we shot in Nicaragua and in Connecticut and
we definitely didn't import drones into Nicaragua though.
No, definitely not, because I know from personal experience you're not allowed to bring drones in.
No, definitely not 4 times.
So you definitely did all the drone footage in the film is from.
No, they're not.
Well, yeah, no, Connecticut, we shot a lot of great footage that made the movie.
Yeah.
Nicaragua, not so much because the drones just didn't agree with the volcanic ground.
Okay.
There's just
we have footage from Nicaragua, but yeah, that was weird. There was some times like we would try to launch the drone, it would just like do crazy things, and people blamed it on the soil. I don't know what the hell it was, but it was definitely strange.
And then in the DR, we got Yeah.
I mean, well, we did succeed. So
Yeah.
Pete, I want to ask you, out of all, because you've been in the industry for a long time, and you would think, being in the industry so long, there's not going to be much anymore that surprises you. But going through adventures like making a film like this, or anytime you do a big project, well, one of the things that I always love learning about is the things that happen along the way that nobody ever expected, or things that you learn that you thought, I can't believe I never knew that before. What was something that, whether it was about one of the patriarchs of the cigar world, or some of the history, what were some of the things that you learned about that you said to yourself, I never knew that. I can't believe I never knew that. Yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That guy has, and I was telling Garrett before we even started the broadcast that, that guy just has the most incredible stories, whether it's dignitaries or celebrities that buy his humidors, and so many of these people that he'll hand deliver. He'll build a humidor for somebody and he'll hand deliver it. And some stories he has with people.
Mm. Oh, Marlon Brando.
To movie script. Wow.
That's a great story.
I got to say about Daniel too. He is probably the nicest person in the world.
Yeah.
Probably. Like, if not, it's like Mother Teresa, then him, maybe.
And
yeah, well, then, yeah.
And then Pete. Yeah, I was lucky enough to get to know him at a few different IPCPRs and have great conversations with him. And then, even at the time that I decided to leave the media group I was with before and start this, I reached out to him, and I mean, he was just could not be more gracious. And honestly, the same was true for pretty much everybody that I reached out to. And he said, anything you need, just let me know. Just if you need a story, if you need stuff to review, if you need, whatever it is, if you giveaways, blah, 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 just hit me up and we'll make it happen. He's just a great dude. And again, it's the cigar industry. So you have to, it's tougher to find assholes in the cigar industry. There are definitely some out there, but it's, there are some industries that you can't, you can't turn 2 inches to the left without bumping elbows with one. But the cigar industry, they're few and far between.
It depends on where you are.
Or I just haven't met the assholes in the cigar industry.
Yeah. I remember being naive once.
Yeah, maybe I'm just being nice.
Yeah, there we go.
I gotta, put on that face for the broadcast and say everybody's my friend. Everybody's nice. I love everybody. You know how it is.
There you go.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Alan's another. I mean, I could talk to Alan all day, and I have talked to Alan all day because he's just one of those people that he's a great conversationalist. And when you get into a conversation with Alan, he'll talk your ear off, and they're great conversations, but he'll just talk and talk and talk. I love it. So one of the things we do here on this show every week is we do some useless facts of the day, and it's just because my whole life I'll spout off some random nonsense, and either my wife or somebody in my life says, "Why do you know that?" There's no reason anybody in the world should ever know that information you have in your head. It's completely useless. And I try to always tie it in with kind of what we're talking about. So you've got the movie Hand Rolled. So I'm going to have one useless fact about the word hand and one useless fact about the word roll. And one of the things you think about when you think of rolls is sushi. So so where does sushi come from? Japan, right? Well, it turns out that's not true. Sushi originated actually earlier, way back in the day, in southern Asia along the Mekong River, down in areas like Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and so that's actually where sushi came from, and it comes from a super old ancient word called narazushi, which is fermented fish wrapped around sour rice. So yeah, not Japanese. It migrated to Japan about 500 years later.
Huh.
So
they made it better, just like everything else.
They made it better, just like everything else. And then so you've got all these useless facts about the terminology around the word hand. So you got first hand and second hand. That started in the mid 15th century from the notion of something being passed from one hand to another. You've got at hand, out of hand, on the one hand, on the other hand to hand to mouth, and hand in hand. These are just a few of the great
hand to mouth. That's
useless a good one. Trivia bits to know about some things. And my favorite segment that we do every week, Garrett talks about death.
Oh,
so we have a random. Yeah. Speaking of
no.
Oh, see, you throw that in there. You throw that in there, and you throw me off my game.
Well, thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad.
It's not happening.
We do a segment on the show every week called Numero de los Muertos. So Garrett, take it away.
All right. The number this week is 235.
So the number this week, 235. So 235 people die from this, every month, every year?
No. This is a total count of people that are dead.
I think more people have died in history than 235.
Little bit. But our number 235, and it is a very specific area.
235 people in a specific area have died from this?
Died here. Died here.
Died here? In house?
No.
You got to give me more than that. I got nothing to go off of.
Where they died is where they will remain probably forever.
Oh, Mount Everest.
Yes, sir.
Oh, nice.
Oh, fucking nerd. Huh?
Hey, yeah.
Nerd.
Steve coming out with Mount Everest, just hitting it right out of the gate.
Yeah, he did.
So
What can I say,
235, I'm actually surprised the number's not higher. There's only 235 people that have died climbing Mount Everest.
Well, no. So there are 235 people that have died on Mount Everest in a place where it is very difficult to reclaim the body. So they have died there and they will remain there.
Wow.
Yeah, there's pictures. I think I saw on Facebook.
Yeah.
Bodies still.
And they use many of these bodies as landmarks.
Yep. Jesus Christ. Take a left at the orange jacket on the ground.
Yep.
Have your Sherpa go past the guy in the blue shirt.
I'm never doing this.
I didn't put the bodies there, bro. Come on.
I'm never doing this segment on the show again. I'm completely. You killed it for me.
No, it's still good.
I see what you did there. You killed it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. See, this guy doesn't get my puns. This guy.
Yeah, that's true. I'm a little slow on the dad jokes.
So, I want to just thank you guys for being on the show with us. Jesse and Steve, we know that it's already out on iTunes. It's going to be out soon on Amazon and Google. Let everybody out there know, besides going and buying the movie on those venues, where they can learn more about the film.
Absolutely, man. Facebook and Instagram is the best place to go. We answer every message that we get, no matter how dumb it is. But no, we love talking to people. So we get emails and messages. I want to know your opinion on the movie. It's hilarious because people will start their message with, I know you don't need to hear my opinion. Yeah, I do want to hear it. We worked almost 4 years on this movie. I want to hear what you think about it. Yeah. So we love talking to people there. We always post when we have updates on anything at all, which we'll post as soon as it goes live on Amazon and Google Play. And our website, handrolledmovie.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. And, we keep you updated that way as well. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. We'll be sure to leave the links to both their website, Instagram, and Facebook page for everybody to find easily.
Yeah,
thank you. We're very talented.
All that stuff as well. Pete, tell everybody about where they can find out more information about Tatuaje Cigars.
Cigarsinternational.com. Yeah. Big Halloween release.
We'll edit that.
Never leave it to us.
That's your fault, bud.
Absolutely. No, we appreciate it. We want to thank you guys for being on our show. I want to remind everybody who's watching, and if you're listening after the fact on the audio podcast, we are going to leave it open for, we'll say 10 days. We're going to leave it open from today for 10 days. Anybody who leaves a comment on the original Facebook post that has this video link in it, anybody who leaves a comment is going to be entered to get gifted a copy from iTunes of Handrolled, and all you have to do is have a valid Apple ID, and we'll select a winner at random and shoot your Apple ID to me, and I will gift a copy of that movie to you.
Definitely don't go out there and buy the movie. Wait for 10 days and see if you get free.
Buy it first, and then
use your voucher for something else,
and then get a voucher for something.
Frozen 2.
I hear the new little Bow Wow.
No, not Frozen 2. Oh God, no, not Frozen 2. So guys, we want to thank you very much for being on the broadcast with us and talking to all our viewers and listeners about the film. Thank you for all the work you put in over the years, honestly, making this film. I know it was a passion project, and everybody who is, even cares a little bit about the premium cigar industry should, if they haven't bought the film already, they definitely should and watch it, because it's kind of a love story about this great industry that we love so much. And thanks for putting in all the work. We appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Oh, Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, please.
If you guys buy the movie, we would really appreciate you guys rating it as well. 5 stars only, though.
5 stars only.
Unless you're on IMDb, then 10 stars. Definitely not 5 stars on IMDb. So.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until we see you next time, burn cigars.
Not bridges.
Take care, guys.